Hello, everybody, entering into our webinar this afternoon. My name is Michelle, part of the TribalHub team. Going to be your host today for our webinar that Zscaler has partnered with us for to bring you. We have quite a few people joining, so we'll give everybody a few minutes to get settled in. But while we do that, and before we get to all of our introductions and what's going to happen, if you wouldn't mind using that chat to type in where you're all dialing in from, that would be so cool. I am here in Michigan today at my home office in Petoskey. So it was a balmy 31 degrees this morning when I woke up. So winter is coming, as that one famous meme goes. And Tanner, you're in Texas, right?
No, I'm
No?
outside of Raleigh, from Texas,
Oh,
based out of Raleigh, North Carolina now.
oh, okay, okay. Oh, Rochester, hmm, Virginia, North Carolina. All right, all over. I love getting to see where everyone's coming from. Callie was just there for an Ahara event. Pachanga, beautiful property. Great. Well, we will get ready and get into everything so we can kick this off and give you guys the most time that you can get, so we can start to talk about this topic today of building digital resiliency. Oops, I think I missed one of my scale. Oh, no, maybe I didn't. There we go. Special thanks to Zscaler for partnering with us today on this webinar. Our presenters, we have Mike from Lucky Casino um, in Washington, right? Is that where you're at?
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
Rochester,
Okay.
Washington.
Rochester. Okay. And then Dave and Tanner from the Zscaler side, which if anybody has been to any of our events, you've probably ran into Dave and Tanner. So thank you guys for being here. The session today will be recorded and will live at tribalhub.com and also on our YouTube page. You will get an email tomorrow with a link. So if there's anybody on your team who maybe didn't show up today or couldn't make it, please feel free to share that with them. And a couple of things to remember, a couple of learning objectives to think about while we're going through the presentation today. Just you can think about those and make sure you use the chat. If you have any questions for Dave or Tanner or Mike during the presentation, use the Q&A or the chat. Either one, we'll be monitoring both and make sure to get all of your questions answered. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Zscaler team.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Give me a
Mhm.
minute and I will share out my slides. Bear with me. And then let me just start it because it never allows me. There we go. All right. Can everyone see this okay? Just want to make sure.
Yep, we got
Yep,
you.
looks great.
Awesome. Good. So today, obviously, you should kind of, set the preference or the expectation around what we're doing today is we're going to be talking with Mike around building the digital resilience. Obviously, Lucky Eagle being one of our customers, they've been through it. So it's a great opportunity, I think, for us to kind of discuss his journey and see how that went for him, the good, the bad, the okay, and everything in between, right? So the agenda today is I'm going to go quickly over our recap of webinar 2. That was just kind of high level. If you were here for any of the webinars, we had 3 of them previously. And then we're going to kind of go back and forth. We're going to look at this more as a fireside chat with Mike and I. So the strategies of adopting a zero trust, implementing it, and how they utilize Zscaler and functionality with other things to minimize the risks. And then ultimately we'll end with kind of the takeaways and then any Q&A at the end. Obviously, as Michelle said, please interrupt, ask questions in the chat. Tanner's there, everyone's there. And we would love to make it interactive too, right? If you have questions for Mike or I. I'll pass it over to Mike. You can introduce yourself, I guess. Probably be best that way.
Sure. So Mike McCarty, I've been here as a cybersecurity network engineer, which is a new title. I was a network engineer when I first got hired almost 2 years ago. Everything from wireless to networking and now to our cybersecurity appliances and and software, manage everything in between that has to do with the secure communication of devices both here on-prem and going out to the internet. So I've worn a lot of different hats in my IT career, both in the private sector and the public sector. So I've seen a lot of different things, a little bit of everything when it comes to technologies, and was definitely excited when our VP of IT, David Paul, wanted to onboard Zscaler for our zero trust solution. So it's been a journey. The journey, as David would tell you immediately, that journey is ongoing, and it's not going to stop. But it's been a great learning experience, not just for myself, but for the entire team, and being able to put in a zero trust architecture that puts us in the best security posture possible for our environment.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Mike.
No, no problem.
And then, of course, as you know, I'm Dave Folliaber, solution engineer. With us as well as Tanner. I'll let you introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Lucky Eagle and David, for lending us Mike for this. Like Dave said, I'm Tanner Denny. I'm the account executive covering tribal nations here with Zscaler. Uh, any TribalHub event over the last year and a half, 2 years, I'm sure I've run into or been able to meet everyone that's going to be here today. So thank you for taking time out of your day to hang out and listen to Lucky Eagle's story with us.
Awesome. So, like I said, I'll just do a quick recap. Zero trust architecture ultimately isn't, as we mentioned in the webinars, isn't always going to be one vendor, right? But you need to start with kind of core processes and processes, right? So a big one we always point to is we want to make sure we never trust and always verify, right? The whole core point of zero trust is making sure that people only access the things they are necessary to do their job or they need to. With that said, we want to make sure that we essentially never trust, right? You start from the ground up. And then once you start building that out to, okay, what do people need access, right? To is then we start getting into that least privilege around that access. Is it required for certain aspects or permissions of this application or that location or that website, right? What can they do? And then context is a big part around that. That's the continuous control around what's happening. If I'm allowed access to sensitive information, what am I doing with it? Where is it going? How do you have guardrails or controls around that so I can and cannot do something nefarious, or somebody can't get into my account to do something nefarious with that? And then, of course, making sure that you're obfuscated from not only the outside, but then you're looking at all potential risks around these policies. That's kind of plays in with that continuous enforcement and monitoring. But we want to make sure we understand not only just where that data is going. Are there other risks out there? Are there new risks coming? 0 days, stuff like that. So that continuous monitoring of around where is that data potentially going? Where could it potentially leak to? And are there new domains or something popping up or a new 0 day that we've found? And let's make sure that we're protecting that and bringing in that telemetry from other software vendors or multiple areas to make sure you're not only patched but correctly protected. Again, this is one big thing you want to do. Ultimately, whether it's a application managed by someone else, usually a lot of people have like an HR management, maybe financial management by someone else. Where is that information stored? Is it protected? Is it properly secured? And then, of course, even internal and applications you manage. So all the way down to that physical layer of what if somebody plugged into your switch back out to the simple user that maybe left their laptop open at Starbucks or some coffee shop because they felt they were fine just leaving it open, right?
Because that never happens.
Never, right? And I've never seen a password on a sticky note, right, in my career either. So this ultimately, I'm going to keep this up for most of the call because it kind of is a broad overview of 4 main areas that we look at as far as Zscaler for zero trust segmentation. And so these are kind of the main four areas. Of course, you want to make sure your users are secured. Again, going back to that portion of can they get to what they need to, right? The mission critical users and applications. And then your workloads, that goes back to, do you have an application that's out in the cloud? Do you have an application's internal? Where is that? Can they communicate securely? And then site to site, or you could call it branch or B2B, business to business, there's needs there, right? And then all the way, like I said, into the internal, that internal microsegmentation of physical layer. So I'll keep this up kind of during this, kind of gives you reminders. Mike and I are going to ultimately just chat about his journey at Lucky Eagle. And Mike, I'll kind of let you set the stage because I know you had a very large importance for cybersecurity over there. If you could kind of give us a synopsis of, hey, what kind of started this whole journey off?
Right. Well, it doesn't take but a quick Google search for you to be able to see that, the increase in ransomware attacks, the different modalities of attack methodologies that bad actors are using, that takes
Right.
on uh, an issue that our current infrastructure really wasn't set to be able to handle. And I think it was the most recent report. And I don't even know if they're still around after all the budget cuts, but the
Hmm.
multi-state information sharing and analysis center in 2024 talked about how specifically with tribal organizations that our cybersecurity budget was tight along along with a lot of others. And at the same time, because we're smaller organizations, then those ransomware attacks are much more frequent. You can look up for Washington State. There was two well-known ransomware attacks here at tribal casinos. Um, and and I know at least one of them ended up paying. And so
Mm.
our focus was really on, okay, let's do a reset and let's go from the inside out on how we're going to make our environment more secure. Um, you know, David, David's, um, David's strategy, and I'm completely on board with it, which is you need to do this in layers. You're not going to have one solution that's going to be able to protect you.
Right.
Um, but I think the one thing with zero trust that makes it a little bit more special is one, as you mentioned, no one is trusted within the network, which is
Right.
huge when you're talking, the old school way of doing things has been, I'm just going to create trusted zones. And if you're in that trusted zone, well, then thumbs up, you're good to go, have fun.
Right.
And you can't take that risk anymore.
Right.
Um, we've had a couple of close calls that allowed us to be able to set ourselves up for stopping those. But it was enough of, hey, one, we need to understand what we don't know, and zero trust helps provide that. Two, it's absolutely a mindset change where zero trust, again, is not trusting anything on the inside, but being able to create dynamic, granular policies to be able to only allow those, not just users, but devices, to be able to go to the application segment or to the SaaS provider that they're authorized to be able to reach. So,
Right.
so for
So
us, so for us, being able to implement Zscaler is, although you can point to it as a solution, um, we truly believe that having implementing an architecture versus an appliance or a solution is really more about how we've changed our culture, our mindset, as well as our environment to be able to ensure that we're more secure.
yeah, no. So it sounds like, ultimately, obviously, like you're saying, the news and obviously, bad actors seem to have a target niche, I guess you could say, right? Like you're saying is, hey, we're kind of out, I don't want to say outliers, but we're smaller casinos. We may not have the manpower or the personnel to support certain, ventures. So looking for solutions, like you said, that is an actual platform that can help you get to that stage that some of these bigger entities may be able to afford financially or
Sure.
have the, personnel behind it backing. Of course, drivers seem to be the news. It sounds like you had a close call or a couple close calls yourself, and obviously close to home, right? Somebody paying out. That sounds like a lot. Obvious drivers. So I guess now, like now that you have Zscaler and you are now that you have, the idea we need to get this, fixed, we need to figure out a way to kind of secure us. We can't, sit back and wait. We've got to be proactive. It sounds like you understand the core. You guys had a core idea of never trust. What's the inside look like, right? So as far as like going to that zero trust framework and
Mhm.
understanding, kind of searching through and sifting through all the vendors and things and options you have out there, right? What was that journey like as far as, what you had potentially come up where maybe we stood out, we didn't, you liked something better?
Yeah.
How did that kind of go about logistically on picking maybe us and other vendors, right?
Right. So a big part of how we do business here at Lucky Eagle, as far as our cybersecurity manager, our NetOps, our operations manager, is that we look at the solution set, and it doesn't matter if it's zero trust or if it's, an email security appliance, whatever it is. It's about being able to see the pros and cons of what each offers. Um, and and for us, the biggest piece that Zscaler brings when they implement zero trust is one, and think I mentioned this before, but the level of granularity is amazing. For me to be able to look at the device and to see, hey, what's the EDR software that's installed
Mm.
on it? Is it active? Is it up to date? Right? Um, is the device joined to the domain? If I'm using a particular app profile, is is the machine, with a specific user? So it goes through those checks and gives us, that security posture that we didn't think we were getting with others. That's number
Hmm.
one. Number two
Okay.
is Zscaler is huge, right? Like I really
Mhm.
didn't have an insight to, just to look at the massive data centers that that is available for, if we have users go from here to overseas, if they were going to do a conference, or to even just Vegas, right? Like there's not an issue with being able to connect to Zero Trust Exchange, which connectivity is everything. And availability is everything. Um, and then finally, just from being able to do our due diligence and see how people have had success with Zscaler, gave us the opportunity to say, you know what, let's bring you and Tanner in, and let's have a conversation into how our environment is and how Zscaler can help us in implementing zero trust.
Very cool. So kind of recap real quick, posture control, it sounds like around the device, understanding of that device and the individual and the granularity of that, the application access network, workload protection.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, then I think a big one that people kind of overlook is you made a good point of ease of use for the user. If you're going overseas, if you're going somewhere else, you're getting the same access, you're getting the same security level. Doesn't
Right,
matter where you're at, of course, due to the fact that we do have data centers all over the world.
right,
And then,
right.
of
And
course, conversation. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and to expand on ease of use, when I can ensure by implementing strict enforcement for per se, right? That user has to be signed in and has to have been authenticated with Zscaler. They can't just
Mhm.
ignore it, right? They can just, oh, I've got this message that says I have to authenticate. Well, unless you authenticate, you're not going anywhere. And something as simple as a sign-in is something a user can be able to can accomplish very quickly.
Right.
Albeit there was other challenges that we can talk about, I guess, with trying to implement things like multi-factor and changing people's behaviors and culture and the culture more
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. I'd love to hear about that.
but yeah, it's, ease of use was definitely a factor. Um, I know David's watching this right now and he's going to shake his head at this, but you know, part of my
Keep your
and
camera off,
I'll
David.
yeah, I will admit I am it's probably one of my fallacies is that I don't take as much into the user experience as I should.
Mm,
Um, and having someone say, okay, when we implemented multi-factor authentication, that was like, that was a completely new way of doing business. Um,
right.
and not just for us, but for our users. And we got a lot of pushback. We got a lot of pushback because for some people, you know, they don't understand it. And it took the time to be able to have conversations with them and being able to say, hey, this is what this is accomplishing. You're not giving up any extra data when you do this. Um, and then doing something as simple as, hey, you're going to have this token on you to be able to do
Mm,
multi-factor authentication. You can't just leave it at home and expect yourself to be able to log into your laptop or desktop. That's not going to work that way. Um, and so that's a little bit more on the bumps and bruises side,
yeah.
but it it goes to what I said previously, which is, this is really a mindset change for us. And to be able to say, okay, we're going to implement a zero trust architecture, and we're going to do it at the granular level. Um, it took us time to be able to onboard our IDP. It took time to set up, shifting from a group-based methodology of setting up policy to a role-based, and
Mm.
doing that at the same time as as implementing Zscaler was probably not the best of decisions, but it made us better. And
Okay.
as a team, it help build that mindset of what
Mhm.
a zero trust architecture really is.
So it kind of sounds like, with, and I'm going to use kind of an analogy of an approach of ripping the Band-Aid off,
Oh yeah,
you learned a lot, right?
yeah,
In a way. And also, you had some kind of hurdles to overcome. I was
yep,
kind of curious. Obviously, it sounded like the one of the big ones was the user hurdles, right, of
yep,
MFA and implementing that.
yeah.
Um, maybe a quick highlight, like what helped you along with that to kind of get the users on board, if anything comes up, right? I know how IT works. Sometimes it's like, hey, this is just a policy. People kind of roll their eyes, if we're being honest. But were there anything that kind of helped? Hey, guys, this is going to get us to this point, or something you did to kind of help soften that for users to understand this is a route we need to go to protect ourselves.
So, the simple conversation is explaining them to what we're doing, which is to make us be as secure as possible, while at the same time being able to do it so that we have multi faceted process. So having them understand that it's more than just them saying, "Hey, I put in my username and password," that should be enough,
Right.
right? Getting them to understand that using that token to be able to say it's not just what I know, but it's what I have as well. And when you're able to, put an analogy for instance, driving your car. Well, what makes that car yours? Sure, you have a key for that car, but you also have a registration. You also have
Right.
insurance, right? And when you put it in terms that they can relate to, it makes that process easier. Um, And, with multi-factor, for us, the implementation was hard. Like, it wasn't just the cultural piece of getting getting the users on board, but it was also the technical piece of being able to say, for using with our IDP, that, hey, we wanted to have a standard where we could get this across the board. So we have a lot of what I'll call legacy policies, um, of using a single user for certain computers, where, although it's a multi-user computer, they're all using the same login. And
Mm.
that may sound ugly, and it is, but for us to be able to say, okay, how can we do this in such a way that we can add the MFA piece? How can we do this in a way that that is that enables a user to be able to do this, without having to jump through a lot of hoops? Um, when it comes to the casino world, um, especially and I can only speak for ourselves, is that you're talking about doing something the same way every day for umpteen years. And when you
Mhm.
throw in this idea that, hey, you're going to have this token with you that you're going to ensure that you connect to your machine with, it's like, wait a minute, what are you guys doing? You're twisting our world around. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
Yeah,
it
no.
it really comes down to trying to overcome the cultural piece, while at the same time integrating into how we do business. And that, technically, that also includes with like legacy applications, right?
Right.
Or with shadow IT, where in previous past have had SaaS applications brought on board that IT had no insights to. So we didn't understand what the what the prerequisites were for setting up those applications. For instance, like source IP anchoring. You know, when an application requires your public IP, well, then I guess we have to have a private service edge. We have to be able to set up a SIPA app segment. We have to be able to implement that on the ZIA side to be able to get to go through the zero trust exchange, but at the same time carry our public IP forward with it. Um, those kinds of things, don't come to the forefront, even if you feel like the application. If you haven't set it up, or if you weren't there for the rollout,
Hmm.
documentation doesn't happen, or it was set up quickly, and you have to learn from that, and becomes a challenge. But those are the types of things that, when to bring this full circle, when we went to implement Zscaler, this wasn't going to be this wasn't going to be, hey, we're just going to push the I believe button and throw a couple of throw a couple of policies in there and call it good. Like,
That's the new, it was easy target button, right? Or that was
right,
easy. Right.
right. And by far we did not take the easy route, right? We
Right.
we implemented an IDP, we implemented multi-factor authentication, we changed from group-based to role-based, um, policy level, access. So, being able to change our mindset and be able to really implement an architecture that was going to be resilient, was going to segment, and was going to not trust but verify, gave us the leg up in being able to implement Zscaler in a way that, one, made sense, and two, was effective. There's been too many times where I've seen in other projects that, they get it up and running and they call it good, right? And they don't implement all the shiny bells and whistles and the functionality that can be hard to implement, that can provide those challenges that you have to overcome. Um, but that's where the security is. That's where you're protecting yourself. And if you're not willing to make that sacrifice to work through those problems, then why implement zero trust?
Yeah. No, I like how kind of going back to the beginning of that after you had the one challenge of, hey, we got to make sure people understand why there's checks and balances, right? We
Yeah,
don't want to be that person in the news. We don't want this issue and have to potentially pay out money or get something stolen that we can't get back, right?
yeah,
Obviously being in the world of casino, time is money, right?
yeah,
That's revenue. Downtime is revenue. And that still is true for any entity when you think about it, even if it's governmental, right?
hmm
Because downtime is revenue essentially, however you may be paid, right? I also like the other thing is where you guys kind of you grew through the pain in a sense is what you're saying. You did take the Band-Aid approach, as I said, where you ripped it off and you found things with that. You did find things that you didn't know you would find, or maybe had forgotten about, or like you said, got buried in the paperwork. And there was not no policy around it, or maybe an old policy that needed to be updated. So it really kind of, almost kind of sifts through everything and
hmm
brings up in a way to say it, kind of the good, bad, and ugly, right? That hey,
right.
we really got to focus on this. We need to change this. As the world changes and progresses, right? Things, security changes, hacks change, hybrid workforces change. As you're mentioning, cloud offerings change, and what I mean by that is, here's a time that you're probably in that kind of a little bit older application like you're talking about where you need to utilize what we call SIPA over here at Zscaler. But hey, maybe there's something out in the cloud that you can utilize now, and we could still protect that portion of it, right? So you can kind
Right.
of grow with Zscaler of whatever version, whatever path you want to go. I always liked you mentioned one thing when we last chatted, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a favorite movie, and there was a quote because ironically, and I'm just bringing that up because everything you're explaining there is like you just assume you're fine. If you don't know about it, then it must be fine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
assumption kills, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Assumptions Kill.
sorry.
That's
Yeah.
my favorite action series on Prime, Amazon Prime. I, you know, I, what you don't know is what's going to hurt you,
Right.
and if you assume that everything's going to be okay, then you're definitely going down the wrong path. Um, and what I'll say in addition to that is that with zero trust being an architecture. And the way David really worked hard in approaching for our department is that this was a department-wide priority, right?
Hmm.
This wasn't something that was like, hey, Elijah and Mike, go take care of this and let me know when you're done. Um, because we couldn't have done it without our systems team and setting up our IDP. We couldn't have made this happen without our help desk techs and being able to have that one-on-one with the users and being able to set up the um, multi-factor authentication, right? So it
Yeah.
was, it was really a team effort, and that's what it absolutely takes. When you're implementing zero trust, you're not going to do it by a one or two person effort. It takes everybody. Michelle, I just saw your question. Did you involve everyone outside of IT? Yeah, the one big one for us was finance. Finance has had
Hmm.
the most application set that we wanted to ensure that they were going to be okay. And ironically, after we had done our testing and rolling out to just IT, finance was the very next group. I mean, we really took this on as this is going to be the hardest department. Let's go through this. And you had to have the conversation with them saying, hey, we're going to have some bumps and bruises. And when you get stuck or you see Zscaler's famous block page, or you can't access something that you could access before, we made it a priority for them to show them that we were going to get it corrected. So Elijah and I would tell them, hey, when we went to each accountant or to an auditor, it's like, reach out directly to us. Don't put a help desk ticket in. Reach out to us directly so that we can be able to assess, identify the issue, and get it corrected and get you back rolling. And I will admit, we saw things that we didn't expect, even with as much testing as we did. But it to go back to an earlier question you asked, why did we choose Zscaler? Um, the amount of insights that Zscaler provides when it comes to data is, I'm just going to say it outright, it's insane.
Yeah.
And
And make you go cross-eyed if you do the
the
raw logs.
I would recommend not turning on alert for something for like a medium threat category, because you're going to become very desensitized to those alerts very
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, the alert fatigue is real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But and I've this is the one I'm going to give a plug to Zscaler here. This is the one thing that Zscaler does really, really well, is how they display their reporting so that it is very easy, and then the you can go into each one of those reports and be able to say, hey, I'm going to look at bandwidth. What are all of the domains or application segments that are eating up our bandwidth? What users are eating up our bandwidth? And then on the flip side of that, to be able to see when a user gets blocked. Um, Although you have to go to a couple of different places, once you figure that out,
Right.
it is seamless. And when you understand Zscaler's very lengthy policy enforcement flow, once you understand that, then it becomes really, really quickly that you can be able to resolve issues.
Awesome. So I'm going to fire a couple things at you, and I have a comment as well. And Tanner, I see the question, but we'll get Tanner's real quick. Quick, he says, what was the initial perception on the rollout from non-IT focused groups versus post deployment? So initial
Hmm.
rollout to now,
Yeah.
essentially.
Um, so I will, and this goes to my lack my lack of empathy for the user experience.
Mm,
Um, it but it was seen as, oh, this is just another security feature that's going to block my ability to do what I need to do, right?
Here we go again.
Correct.
Right, right.
Correct.
We've all heard
And
that.
yes, and we had some bumps and bruises with that on that initial rollout
Mm,
from in one particular case, it was my inability to see that policy change had replicated across the organization, such that it literally, it showed that internet access was there, but it blocked it at the same time. And so the trials and tribulations that you have when you're testing out policy, probably not the best bet to do it across the enterprise, but today, you know, when they're not able to access something or they suspect it's an issue, they already have the verbiage to say, hey, can you see if I'm being blocked if they don't get the Zscaler block? Um, you know, I'm supposed to be able to get to this server, but I'm not able to get there. And then it becomes very quick to be able to diagnose and figure out. However, the amount of occurrences and events that is happening has decreased beyond belief.
right.
So I think users, their first impressions are probably not the same impression that they have, but at the same time, because we made the effort to get them up and running, we gave them the one-on-one time when we implemented multi-factor authentication with it. Um, it is, you don't hear the complaints.
Right.
And part of that too is that, again, this is a department priority. And it doesn't matter if it's me taking care of a user's issue, or Elijah, or anybody from the systems team or the help desk. Um, we've had our own internal training to say, hey, when you see this issue, you know, you can take this flow chart here and go down this path of, is it Zscaler or is it something else? Right? And
Right.
Zscaler has its own built-in um, tools. If they say that, hey, my bandwidth or my speed is so bad right now, hey, run speedtest.zscaler.com to see, hey, what data center are we going to?
Hmm.
Is there an issue between connectivity between Zero Trust Exchange and the device? Is it, with ZDX, which I love the digital environment module that comes with it, to be able to see each and every step from the device. Hey, I have this user sitting in Aberdeen who has a dead laptop battery. I mean, that's the level of insight I can get just off of the device. Or is CPU usage through the roof? Is it really chugging on something to work that may be causing the poor experience the user has? Or um, to be able to see the bandwidth control, or the response times for the probes to and from a SaaS application. Those kinds of insights, puts Zscaler um, to the forefront, and us being able to troubleshoot quickly.
Yeah, so downtime to back and working, right? Kind of making sure that you can actually be proactive.
Yeah,
A lot of those can be alerts, workflows too, right? Which is kind of that cool part that it's like, hey, we know that these people are going to be calling us soon because we either got alert, or we see, like you said, you use the tool to see that, okay, I know exactly what the issue is. So you
right.
don't have to spend time troubleshooting that yourselves.
And
Um,
and I will say, with specifically, like with in VPNs of the past, and I won't mention the one we had before because it was painful, but um, you had no insight. Like,
right.
you had no insight to where the issue was. You didn't know if it was the person's wireless router. You didn't know if it was the person's ISP. You didn't know if it was the path to get to our gateway. You didn't, you didn't know. You didn't have any insight. Um, and to be able to walk a user through a couple of clicks to be able to get logs off of the client connector makes it really, really easy. On top of, as I mentioned before, ZDX. ZDX gives you that 360-degree view of what is the user really dealing with, and that could be causing the problem. So information information is key. And it I will admit, when we were talking, when you and Tanner came to the casino, and we had a conversation about reporting and um, being able to see the logs. I still didn't believe it when you guys walked out, but now, after I've been in it now for going on, geez, 5 months, it's given us insights that we never had before, and given us insights in a way that is very easy to comprehend, to be able to see what is happening, and allows you to dive into a specific report that is not a painful process.
Right. So a couple of things. I was going to make a comment. I remember going out and meeting you guys, and what I enjoyed about it, honestly, and I love this. Tanner can contest. I love when people ask me questions that I don't know. Right.
Mm,
And this kind of goes back to your point. This project is massive,
yeah,
right? I'll be honest, I'm not gonna know everything on it. There is so much to it. But that's the beauty of it, is I'll go back and get that answer. But I love that because that tells me multiple things, right? You're serious about this. You're looking at this. You're digging in, right? You're
yeah,
communicating to, yeah, of course, it was us at the time, but the vendor that you're looking at, you're communicating to them saying, hey, I need to make sure it does X, Y, Z. These are
Right.
very important, right? And I need proof it does this. And you guys all, peppered me with questions, and it was, yeah, it's one of those things like, yep, I got this one. I got that. No, I don't know this one. But it brings up other things. Like I love doing that because that, it also I get to dig into Zscaler more and more. And it does, to your point, it's amazing how large this software is and how much it provides. So kind of like a quick recap, because I kind of want to get to, I know we're coming up with 15 minutes left, and I have a couple more questions for you. But I know we went through like your journey of why you got, decided to go to Zero Trust, how you got to Zscaler. You communicated a lot internally. It sounded like you had some plans, specific needs. You were looking for, certain aspects of for the finance, department, what they wanted. So you're like kind of testing, going outside, just the IT focus group, if you will, and then seeing how that, gets deployed. One question I do have is, do you have quick, maybe like, 2 or 3 minute kind of story around maybe what application or how an application was deployed and how that was for like a department like finance, if that's one that you want to choose, or how that looked and anything that happened around that little journey real quick.
Yeah, so I can give you one I can give you one that was recent that we finished with the hotel side of the house
Perfect.
where the I'm sorry, it wasn't the hotel, it was the reward center where members and guests go to be able to cash out, to be able
Mm,
to update their membership, to be able to update their rewards cards, to be able to do e-cash. And one of the big things about Zscaler that gave us um, something that we really wanted to have was SSL inspection.
okay.
The product that we had before that was supposed to be able to do SSL inspection was not exactly up to snuff. I'll just put it that way. Um,
Right.
and SSL inspection works for a lot of modern applications, SaaS applications that are browser based. However, um, one thing that SSL inspection does not work well for is certificate pinning. And our challenge with that was all we saw was that the the time that a person swiped their credit card for eCash or debit card for eCash um, was the delay was various from 2 minutes to 5 minutes before the process went through, which if you've ever been to a casino and you're dealing with gamblers, they want to get their entertainment started immediately. So a 2 to 5 minute process for that to happen was unacceptable. So
Right.
with SSL inspection turned on, and this is goes back to my earlier comment with regards to shadow IT or not having the understanding completely of the product. For the reward center is they had certificate pinning enabled, and that is how that they're able to conduct those transactions in a secure way that SSL inspection was disrupting. And it didn't I don't think any other zero trust product would have been able to or would be able to see it, but Zscaler doesn't give you the ability to say, oh, this application's using certificate pinning. So
Right.
so when you go down that path of okay, where's the problem? We know the problem started when we implemented Zscaler on it. you know, what is Zscaler doing that is not allowing this transaction to happen within a second or two, right? And going from a second or two to 2 to 5 minutes obviously is unacceptable. So
Yeah, that's
so
not right.
yeah, so when you're able to see, okay, I do a search for the last day and be able to identify, hey, here's the user, here's the machine, here's the URL or the IP they're going to, and I want to see a policy action of blocked. And I'm quickly able to identify, hey, this is the issue. In this particular case, Zscaler doesn't provide that. But understanding, again, the the policy enforcement flow path, and that is key. And I guess I should have asked if you had that for a slide, but that
No,
is,
that's fine. Yeah.
that is a detailed flow that goes through. I think the last update I saw was like 60 something checks.
Hmm.
And and when you say, oh, SSL inspection, am I inspecting am I doing SSL inspection for this flow path? Yep, I am. Let's turn it off and let's find out. Sure enough, boom. All of a sudden transactions were happening back within 1 to 2 seconds. So, that's I want to say that's an extreme, but it's why and it's why I love how David made this a priority for the department. Being able to do training, to be able to understand how this product works, to give you that zero trust architecture is more than just this isn't a content filter. This isn't a VPN solution, right? To be able to understand how all of the components play together from your app connector to your private service edge out to the public service edge on the zero trust exchange, and how those policies flow with where the data path starts from within the network to outside of the network and back. um, Being able to understand that is key. And you know I love all the training that Zscaler provides, and I hate the training. Um,
Fair.
and
Same.
you
Same.
and Tanner have heard this, but some of the UIs that are out of date,
Yep.
and the AI, some of the AI driven content that speaks out inappropriately, the acronyms, um, you know, the piece though that you get from the training is understanding the principles, is understanding the components.
Right.
When you go to implement it, that is really where you learn. But you
Yeah.
get that basis from the training to be able to have a starting point. And I just got done ragging on your training, but something that absolutely saved us was Chris Fonseca from Professional Services.
Ironically, you read my mind. I was like, hey, I was right about to interrupt, say we got 8 minutes. How was our support? How did we get or help you around that if we did,
Yeah,
right? Quickly talk about that. If you can do it in like a minute, that'd be great.
yeah,
And we kind of get to the last, slide lessons and closing remarks,
yeah,
takeaways.
yeah. So I'm gonna say I've had I've onboarded products and appliances and software where we've used third party professional services or professional services from the vendor, and it did not come close to the thought out plan and being able to get us to a place that was more than just we've put a couple policies in, call it good. His ability to give us context in in taking the time to understand our infrastructure so he knew where to focus his efforts. Um, I've never had a professional services team take ownership the way he did. When something didn't work or something didn't happen as expected, he put the ticket in. He was the one that took the time to follow up with support if he wasn't getting the answer he expected or if the correction wasn't there. He gave us, identify the possible pitfalls that we were going to deal with. And really, I Elijah and I say it every day. I wish we still had Chris because he was just a plethora of knowledge when it comes to understanding Zscaler, and he delivers what I think if every professional services team from every vendor ever just watch Chris do a day's worth of sessions, you would see the right way, the correct way it's supposed to be done, because I cannot verbalize enough how much Chris helped us.
Yeah. I will say internally, when I see his name come across and he's supporting one of my customers, I get a smile too. He is
Yeah,
amazing at that. And we have very good PS people here, not
yeah,
just him.
yeah.
But yes, my experience is similar, even as on my side, it's like, I love it when people, to your point, care about what you need, not here's a template, we're going to follow this. I
Well,
know we're coming up.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
So I was going to say too is, you know, you could get a third party that could help you, you know, get stand up Zscaler, but are they going to know it as in depth as Zscaler's professional services team? That's the
Right.
question you have to ask yourself.
Right. And so, yeah, what are you waiting? What are you willing to deal with as far as like growing pains with a new technology, new mindset, and new architecture?
Yeah.
Right. So, understood. Yeah, I'll kind of pass it to you. So, kind of takeaways. I know we went a little long. It was a good conversation, but I'll let you have a few, takeaways here, and then we'll go to any Q&A if anyone has anything.
Perfect. So I hit on the professional services and available training. Yes, there are some downfalls with the training, but it sets you up to be able to understand Zscaler's products, and puts you in a good place to be able to understand what you're trying to accomplish. The implementation piece is it has to be a culture change, and like I said before, this isn't the cybersecurity team, this isn't the networking team, this isn't the engineering team. This has to be everybody. And when you implement something that is such a paradigm shift in the way you do business, it requires everybody to be successful. Test, test, test. I know that's like the bottom line for any project. You can't do enough testing when it comes to Zscaler because there's going to be things, if you have what I'll call an older architecture where you may have a mix of modern and legacy applications, you're going to see stuff break. You're going to see stuff that needs its own configuration to be able to get work properly. And then finally, deploying, sustaining, it's got to be a phased rollout. You're not going to be able to do this to just everybody at once. I don't care how small your organization is. Um, if you're a tribal sovereignty that has a healthcare or human resources or different departments that use different applications, you're you're gonna hit speed bumps, and you have to account for those speed bumps. So, you know, make it a phased rollout. And I will say this too, is take your time with it. Don't don't um don't just try to blow through something just to make a date, because you're setting yourself up for failure if you do. And then finally, I've kind of talked about it at length, is the make the data work for you. Figure out how best to be able to set up alerts that will give you the emergency notifications that you need. I'll finish it off with this, on why zero trust is so important to us. About 4 weeks ago, we had an email come in to several directors from an organization that we work with. And unbeknownst to us, that email was sent from an account that was compromised. And that email had a serious phishing attachment that was a redirection to a site to pull the user's credentials. And if it wasn't for Zscaler, we we would have been in would have been in a tough place, to put it mildly. Our email filter did not catch it. Our SIEM did not catch it, and so Zscaler was literally the last barricade that saw the redirection and immediately put a block to it.
Awesome.
And I cannot say how much Zscaler has already paid for itself with regards to being able to, and by the way, the person that clicked on that was in finance. So we
The irony.
yeah. So, if it had been the wrong, application that those credentials were sent for, we could have been in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I know we're at the top of the hour. Obviously, if you guys have questions, Michelle, thank you for posting that. She posted to my email, Tanner's email. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Reach out to us via email. Mike, I appreciate your time. It's been great. Dave, thanks. David, rather, thank you. Make it easier for Dave and David. But thank you for letting us steal them for a while and having this chat. I appreciate everyone joining, and I hope to hear from everyone.
All right. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Look for that email tomorrow with the link to this recording, and be sure to share it with anyone on your team who couldn't make it. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, Michelle. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.